This video will help you with creating the Automoblox male figure. So based upon previous Automoblox versions prior to the 2016 Blue T9 version. And as we take a look, these figurines are going to be what we're going to try to model. So within the document they go through and they provide some dimensions, and I will warn you as you go through and look at some of the modeling, and as I model some of the parts, they don't really necessarily give you dimensions for every component, so it's just a matter of we're learning how to utilize the tools and some of the basic sketching techniques. So as we take a look in the activity, they do provide us, I'm on split screen here to help show some of the documentation as well as some of the inventor modeling. We'll go through and see that I've got a rectangle that I've sketched just like how they want us to be provided, 0.575 by 0.575, and then they want us to go through and extrude a profile 0.3 inches as shown. So I'll go through, I'll say finish sketch, and do an extrusion of 0.3 to go through and to have that happen. So sometimes my extrusion window will show up here at the left side, so if you are looking for that. Now here's the scenario, is as you go along they will show that this figure here is going to go through and take a look at, from a different point of view, and then once we get into some other parts it's standing upright. So I'm going to show you a method of how you can go through and change this. So first off, let's go through and we'll take a look at getting some of the body extruded, and then we'll change the orientation of it. So I'm going to start a new 2D sketch on the front face, so we're on the top face of what we're going to have. If you don't have yellow project geometry lines show up on the outside, we'll have to project the geometry there. I'm going to create an ellipse, and within there I'm going to go through and create an ellipse that's smaller than my part, or at least the outside edges of my part. It's going to make it a lot easier on us as we go through and model. Some things that we will definitely want to do is when I go to constrain, I'm going to vertically constrain the center of the ellipse to the center of the rectangular base, and then I'll also horizontally constrain it, so along this edge as well. So looking for those green dots for the midpoints of the lines, and then aligning those with the center point of the ellipse. Now when you go to dimension, they show in this here that you go through and click from the center point of the ellipse out to the outside edge, but one thing you'll find is that when you go through and try to do that, it doesn't give you a dimension in order to do so. So I'm going to right click, say OK to get off the dimension tool. I'll have to use a point. So very similar like how we did on the holes feature. I'm going to set 2 points in here, one on the very edge of the very right edge of the ellipse, and one at the very bottom, just like how they would show in the drawing. So from here, when I click from the center to now the point, I can put in 0.236, and the size of our ellipse will change. Same thing down here to be 0.155. So that'll go through and help us with that. They tell us in here they want us to extrude it to be a value of 0.115, so I'll say finish sketch. I will then extrude just the ellipse to be 0.115. Click OK, and then from here they want us to utilize the offset tool to create a larger ring of 0.05 and then extrude the rest of the body of the figure. So I'll start a new 2D sketch, click on the top face of the ellipse. I will need to project the geometry of the ellipse and utilize the offset tool, and then I'll click on the ellipse itself, drag out. As I'm dragging out, I can type in 0.05, hit enter, and then I'll get an ellipse that shows around the outside edges of our rectangular base, or the square base for this object. When I say finish sketch, I can go through and they give us some dimensions here on the drawing, 0.84 extrusion, and they want it to be a tapered extrusion. Tapered means that it's going to be bigger at the top and smaller at the bottom in this case. So I'll click extrude. I'm going to have to choose both shapes in there to make it solid. I'll do 0.84 for the extrusion depth, and right now this is where we get just a regular kind of elliptical cylinder that shows up. But in order to make this a tapered extrusion, I'm going to click on the More tab within the extrusion dialog, and you'll see an option for a taper. So I'm going to go through and see, let's see what 10 degrees will go through and do. So if I type in 10, it'll go through and set in a 10-degree taper, and that looks pretty representative of what we're going to be working with in terms of what they have in the pictures. So I'm going to click OK. That will go through and set up our tapered extrusion, and from here in the document they tell us to kind of save the part, but I'm going to keep working through to finish it out here in a moment. But I'll go through and go full screen here on Inventor to show you. Right now this is what, like the top and the front and everything like that looks like based upon our particular option. So here's what I'd like to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to turn this so that way the front looks like this. Now on the view cube it says it's the bottom, and when I go through and click home it brings me back, but I'm going to turn this so it looks like this, so that way this would be like the front view. Well, to change this, I'm going to click the little arrow next to, you'll notice there's a little down arrow next to here in the corner of the view cube, and I'm going to say to set current view as, and I'm going to change this to the front view. Then when I click on the home button, it'll go through and it will change this to be the top, and then this goes through and be the right, and it still changes the spec. So why does it go through and do that? Well, I'm going to click on this corner right here. Here's top, front, right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click that little down arrow again, set current view as home, and I'm going to say to fit to view. So now when I click on the home button, this will go through and show up in the home view every time. So this goes through and shows you how to change the orientation of a part whenever you want to go through and need to change it within Inventor. And this also concludes the first part of the Automoblox mail